Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hi, my name is Val, my pronouns are she, they, and I'm a queer, disabled, biracial, Mexican-American streamer and writer. You can catch me on Twitch and most social places at spacevalkyries, and you can also read my science fiction and fantasy under the pen name VM Ayala. I love indie games and have been streaming and flailing about them for over 5 years now. My passion is delving into narrative and story in indie games, and I tend to focus on game narratives from a fiction writer's perspective because I am a short story writer and a novelist. I also write up narrative thoughts and general updates on my Patreon. And now, with all the anxiety-inducing about me information over with, I'd like to talk to you today about burnout and perfectionism. Which is to say, I'd like to yell about Wanderstop. And there will be a lot of talking about burnout and the concept of rest when we exist in this hellscape of a timeline with this one. Wanderstop is a cozy farming and shop simulation game with 0 time stress and 0 rules. Well, okay, there's some vague rules, but they're more like gentle suggestions. It's from the creator of the Stanley Parable, which is quite a tone swerve. However, it contains a lot of thoughtful and poignant commentary all the same, just in a cozier, more low-key contemplative package. You play as Alta, a sword fighter trying to figure out why she can't lift her sword anymore. When she passes out in a magical forest from exhaustion, Oro, the owner of a strange tea shop, offers to let her rest at, well, Wanderstop and serve tea to guests, if she wants. See, Alta doesn't have to do anything, and you, the player, do not have to do anything. You can literally just go running around and picking up ingredients, snipping at weeds, and hilariously shaking pluffins. Pluffins, by the way, are adorable green penguin-like birds that you can brew tea for to change their colors. Also, they will steal anything you leave lying around, including seeds or the little trinkets that you can get. There's not very far for them to go, as the ground shops are small and straightforward, so it's pretty funny when this happens and you just see a pluffin walking by you with a seed or like toy you got, and you're just like, where did you get that, little guy? Where was I? All right. Wanderstop is a story-focused game. Unlike mini management and farming sims, there are no timers at all. Well, okay, no, I tell a lie. There is one singular timer, and that's for your T-balls to dry. Sorry, I'm an adult. I laugh at the words T-balls. Anyway, you can leave them sitting around for as long as you want. Once they dry, though, there's no like ramifications for missing your T-ball timer. As you, wander around Wanderstop's singular tea shop, customers simply show up. They'll randomly pop up and chit-chat and ask for various drink types throughout the game's magical seasons. Those magical seasons, by the way, are also within your control entirely. You can trigger shifting from season to season once you're ready to move forward in the story, which is, I think, probably one of the few times I've seen that. The game really reinforces no timers. You do things on your own time. Sorry, the joke got away from me. You make these guests tea and eventually coffee by picking up seeds and growing the right magical plants. Yes, including magical coffee plants. Don't ask me how that works. You'll find out. Some strange space magic is involved. It's very good. You also make tea through a huge glass boiler and chuck various ingredients in it while clinging to a ladder. It's all very surreal and bizarre in a cute, whimsical way. As you serve these customers drinks, they'll tell you their stories, or at least part of their stories. The thing that I find interesting about Wanderstop is that these customers and all the characters except for Boro are just passing through. Same as Alta. You, the player character, are also just passing through. So you don't really impact these customers' narratives. Not really. You simply listen to them. Some you only even see once and you never see them again. You never learn the outcomes to their stories, and some of those stories are pretty strange. Like one of them is just cursed and you never find out what happens with that. It's a very thoughtful choice, reinforcing the game's theme around letting go and simply existing in the moment, which might infuriate you sometimes if you're like me and you want more narrative completion. But I found myself realizing that this was a feature, not a bug, if that makes sense. The game wants you to only get a certain part and not a whole, and that in itself is a purposeful choice, which I think is ultimately very cool and serves what Wanderstop is trying to do very well. Now, let me take a beat for just a second to explain why this game hit me in the feelings so hard when I first played it. I'm trying to remember when that was. It was not that long ago, and yet somehow it feels like it was quite long ago. I was playing Wanderstop for the first time when I was taking 5 classes in a semester. Pro tip, don't do that. I was trying to return to college and like finally finish my undergraduate degree. I'm still trying to do that. I'm almost there. As a disabled person, I've had a rough go of it, to put it very simply and mildly. Medical issues have forced me to take things much, much slower than I'd like to. Capitalism also doesn't take too kindly to that. So opportunities that are right for my health needs are few. Maybe you can relate to this, even if not the medical part, the constant pressure of that. I am constantly pushing myself well past my breaking points. And at that time in my life, I was paying for it pretty badly. I was so sick and miserable and having bad pain flare-ups. I developed TMJ, like the whole, which is like a jaw muscle pain issue from all the tension, the clenching. If you were anxious and listening to this, unclench your jaws right now. My proverbial sword, as it were, was getting too heavy to pick up. So enter Wanderstop. I played it on stream. I got a key for it and was like, this looks cute. I really like the devs. Let's see what it is. And it emotionally eviscerated me in the best way possible. So, enter Wanderstop, enter Alta, pushing herself to be the best fighter. In 4 years of competing and fighting, Alta never lost a match. And one day she lost, and she lost again and again and again, and started thinking that she was just a failure. Distraught, she sought out a fighting master that might fix her, which is how she ended up passed out from exhaustion in a magical forest. Boro is one of the most endearing tea shop owners you will ever find in a video game, by the way. I love him. I would die for him. He's just so good. Boro gently tells Alta that she needs to rest. And Alta, of course, refuses to listen at first because raise your hand if you push yourself too hard and ever listen to anyone who is like, you need maybe a tiny break, and you just kind of laugh at them. Yeah. Then she lets Boro take the sword that she can't pick up anymore because she's so exhausted and she just is overwhelmed and doesn't understand why the sword is so heavy for her. She is a fighter, the best fighter out there. She's pushed and pushed and pushed. Why is the sword that is custom made for her suddenly so heavy and so impossible to pick up? Yeah, that's totally not at all a metaphor for perfectionism and burnout, like I said. Yeah. Throughout the majority of the game, Alta can't pick this sword up. She's too tired, too exhausted, and giving herself too hard of a time for her perceived failures. But eventually, Alta admits that maybe taking a break would be good, and this is where you become the sort of tea shop assistant. If you want to, Boro's like, you can make tea for these people or don't. I will not judge you either way. Just whatever sparks joy for you, Alta, go for it. It's a very adorable vibe that those two have. But this break is a very temporary break, and Alta will have to return to reality at the end of the game. This is not a permanent thing. The game really reinforces that, like, this is just a brief respite. This is very temporary, but it is a break nonetheless, and that matters. And in the end, through some pretty intense conversations, I will say, this game does have some moments where you're like, whoa, that was kind of very real and I wasn't expecting that. But also there are some very fun and silly things like businessmen who want coffee from magical coffee, like beans, coffee grounds just in the grass. It's fine. And in the end, Alta does learn somewhat that being a fighter doesn't have to define her so intensely. And I really think that that's sort of what the game is trying to tell you, the player, that like whatever is your metaphorical sword that is super heavy and has you exhausted, it doesn't have to define you as a person to the point where it changes you and exhausts you and leaves you just bereft of anything else in your life except this one defining trait. There's more to life than that. But also, we exist under capitalism, right? Like, you have to have a job, especially if you're a creative person. You have put time and effort and you have perfected your craft. You're a creative writer, you're a game developer, you're an artist, like any number of creative professions. You know, that's something that you've spent a long time trying to perfect. So Wanderstop doesn't offer any solutions about burnout or like how to tackle burnout, exhaustion, or perfectionism. anything like that. It doesn't offer any solutions. It's very clear about that. It doesn't claim that resting will magically solve all your burnout problems, because that's not how life works. And as many may know, obviously, a lot of people listening to this, perhaps you're in a similar situation to me, where you know that you sometimes just don't get the luxury of a break long enough to fully recover from burnout. At best, you might get half a day here and there, maybe blissfully a full weekend when you aren't cramming side hustles in there. Maybe. I don't, that's unrelatable to me. But the game doesn't really tell you to care less about your passions and pursuits either, which is actually something I found really refreshing, because a lot of games that are like, just stress less, or like, care less about these things. Wanderstop doesn't do that. It's like, this is your passion. Like, it goes to Alton. It's like, yeah, you're the best sword fighter. And obviously, if you cared less, that would actually be bad. You just need to not let it define you so much. And I found that really maybe honest. And again, I think I made this joke when I was playing the game, like at the game developers. I hope your therapy bills are paid and good, and I hope you're thriving and moisturized and getting a decent amount of sleep. Because like, woof, it was in a good way, like a good woof. Sorry. Now I'm just rambling. I lost my script. Where was I? Oh, yes. The game also doesn't tell you to care less about your passions and pursuits. It's very much a love letter to creatives who burn themselves out trying to make it. Be you a fiction writer, a game developer, an artist, a streamer, podcaster, TTRPG player, literally any and all, like a crafter. So many creative industries out there. Wanderstop is a plea to listen to any and all of those careers and interests that demand utter and absolute perfection to barely make an income in this society and economy. Wanderstop just tells you to put the metaphorical sword down a little while and do nothing for a brief moment before the effort kills you, or changes you into someone you maybe don't like all that much. Like, maybe there are times for me anyway that I've definitely done and said some things while stressed and burnt out that I regret, because I just wasn't being true to who I am, because I was just so compressed and so pressurized, right? And I think this game, as Alta kind of looks at her own behavior, really forces you to be like, hey, do you want to be that to people? Have you harmed people and or yourself? Not literally, don't literally do that, but like, just emotionally, or, just in relationships, like maybe take a beat and just put that, like, depressurize a little if you can, because it's not always possible. And I just think Wanderstop is such a beautiful note on that. It just is like, hey, this is rough. There's no solution. What if you just had a space, a little magical, surreal space with a strange little tea maker that's a giant, it's not little, it's actually quite giant. This beautiful, magical, surreal, odd landscape. What if you just dissociated here for a minute and didn't think about your problems anymore? I think Wanderstop really kind of is just like, hey, maybe you can just chill and take the briefest respite from your stressors. You can shake a pluffin around and brew a variety of strange teas, or you can literally make the worst actual sludge. You can find all the ingredients and chuck them into the water and just drink it and see what Boro says, or you can offer it to Boro, or you can have Alta drink it. You can literally do whatever you want, or you can dissociate for 10 minutes snipping weeds. It truly is up to you. There are no wrong answers in this game. I know some people enjoy timers and time stress, and that sometimes high stress games give you an outlet to, like, those are the people who play like a Dark Souls game. They're like, this sparks joy. And like, this is not a condemnation of those types of players, by the way, but more like, this game truly takes that and goes, okay, but like, what if you had zero pressure? Like, literally zero pressure. What if you just had that isolated space, that nothing? Like, what if you truly had no timers? For just 5 minutes, what would that do? And I really think that that's such an interesting concept. And I don't think I've ever seen a game that truly tries to live up to that. There are no timers. It's super cozy. This game is also just very contemplative. Contemplative. It makes you think. And as I mentioned, there are no wrong answers. Just enjoy a brief window of no deadlines, no timers, nothing but quiet contemplation and pluffins and tea. Happy gaming.
Welcome to No Small Games, the indie gaming recap and review podcast. I'm Kate, also known as Cater Blossom.
And I'm Emily. You might also know me online as The Specific Egg.
And we met streaming and playing video games on Twitch.
At No Small Games, we combine our favorite genres to experience everything the indie game world has to offer and share it with all of you. We believe there are no small games, only small game studios.
Each episode, we'll choose one indie game that we each played separately and discuss our playthrough experience together.
The good, the bad, and our most memorable moments. We'll follow our recap with a review and announcement of which indie game will be featured on our next episode.
We invite you to play each game along with us and would love to hear from you about your playthrough experience.
Hey, Kate.
Hey, Emily.
I hope that No Small Games brings everyone some big fun.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.